Hello, fellow students. This is our presentation about Elder Perry, a member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. This was compiled by Emily, Kelly, Crystal, Jacob, and Tim. Elder Perry was born August 5th of 1922 to Tom and Nora Perry, and his first name is Lowell, which we don't hear often. He goes by L. Tom Perry instead of Lowell, but just an interesting fact for you. Grew up in Logan, had the nickname of Stretch. He's very tall, 6'4", and loved to be a person to be played with and have fun. He's always been committed to perfect attendance at church. One Sunday, he was so sick with tonsillitis that his parents decided the attendance record would have to be broken. All members of the family left for church except for Tom and his mother. The family was surprised to see them enter the chapel only a few minutes after the meeting had started. Despite the fact that he was quite ill, he made every effort possible to be where he knew he was supposed to be. Elder Perry is very competitive. As a teen, he played vanball, a sport that combined basketball and volleyball. He led his team to the all-church title in 1940 as captain. And his love of sports continues even today. Here's a nice picture of him throwing the ceremonial pitch during Mormon night at the Red Sox game in 2004 at the age of 82. It was an inside strike even. His young adult years. Before embarking on his mission, Elder Perry attended Utah State Agricultural College. He was not able to return and finish his degree in finance until 1949 due to his service for the Lord and his country. After returning from his duties, he returned to college. He soon met and married Virginia, his first wife, in 1947. During his sophomore and junior years, he served as president of the Independent Students Association. The 1947 yearbook notes that he is likable, friendly, Delta Phi, became a campus landmark between classes waiting for Virginia, is looked up to by almost everyone, was ISA, Independent Student Association, Prexy president for this year and re-elected for next. He served a mission in the northern states in 1942. New on the mission, Elder Perry found his testimony being tested as he would attempt to teach others. He found himself being swayed towards other faiths. I finally decided that this kind of thing should not be happening to a Mormon missionary. I decided that before I could teach and bear testimony about the gospel, it was first necessary that I know something about it myself. And that was his quote. He decided he needed to learn the scriptures better and give better speeches. He went into the basement to practice his first speech and coaxed a mouse out of the wall with a cracker to be his audience. The mouse stayed only long enough to get the cracker and left, but each day the mouse stayed a bit longer. And when he delivered his speech on baptism by immersion, the mouse stayed the entire time, apparently listening. Elder Perry was pleased by his growing ability to reach his audience. The next morning, he found the mouse at the bottom of a dishpan of water, apparently having decided, due to the force of the speech on baptism, to baptize himself by immersion. Elder Perry served in the Marines during World War II. 6 weeks after returning from his mission, he determined that he would volunteer for the U.S. Marine Corps. Elder L. Tom Perry was with the first occupation troops that entered Japan. While on the island of Saipan, located in the Pacific, he and his companions built a small chapel. Later in Nagasaki, he touched the hearts of the congregation of Japanese people when he led a group of servicemen in rebuilding a Protestant chapel. When they were transferred to Sasebo, over 100 members of the congregation lined up along the tracks, and as the train went by, touched hands with Elder Perry and his companions to show their gratitude. He was released in 1946. Following his release from the Marine Corps in the fall of 1946, Elder Perry married his first wife, Virginia Lee, in the Logan Temple. They had 3 children, Barbara, Lee, and Gay. They were married for 27 years. Virginia passed away after a 6-year battle with cancer, and 8 months after Elder Perry was called to be an apostle. Their eldest daughter later passed at the age of 33 from cancer also. Early into his apostleship, after his first wife died, he was counseled by the prophet to seek a new wife and was given detailed instruction. He soon met and married Barbara Taylor Dayton. And that was on the 28th of April, 1976 in the Salt Lake Temple. This is Barbara's first marriage, and they are still married with no additional children. A little bit about Elder Perry's career. He was a successful businessman in the retail business. He served as vice president and treasurer. His job moved his young family to many states, from California to Idaho, Massachusetts to New York. With his devoted work ethic and raising a family, Elder Perry found a needed balance to care for both. After living in California for several years, Tom decided an employment offer from a firm in New York City. He received that offer, and after asking for inspiration and direction from the Lord and discussing the pros and cons of this venture, we decided it would be right to accept this opportunity. Upon receiving confirmation from our Heavenly Father, we traveled across the country with our family to the East Coast. We started looking for a home in New Jersey and kept looking all the way through the state of New York and into Connecticut. Finally, in the beautiful state of Connecticut, we found our dream home on a little secluded, winding country lane tucked back in the woods. We all fell in love with it, Tom said. Well, now the thing to do is test the commuting time. So early the next morning, he caught the New Haven train for New York City. He returned later in the afternoon with a disappointed look on his face. It had taken 1.5 hours to commute to his office, he told the children. Well, I guess you'll have to choose between this home and me. If we live here, it will take all my extra time to commute back and forth. The children dejectedly looked at one another, and then, with only a moment's hesitation, one piped up and said, "We'll take the home, Dad. We probably won't see you anyway." Even though the statement was made partly in jest, Tom got the message and took it seriously. We moved to Scarsdale, where the commuting time was 35 minutes. Tom made sure he had every Saturday off, and we tried to make this a family day. I think Tom realized the great importance of having a balance in life and not letting his professional work monopolize too much of his time. Later, when he was stake president in Boston, he counseled the men of the priesthood to fill out a calendar each month. And the first item to be placed on that calendar should be a date with their wives each Friday evening, then family home evening every Monday, then priesthood meeting, sacrament meeting, home teaching, etc. Elder Perry's church service has had a lot of different avenues. In his youth, he served in the MIA and primary. His callings only grew from there. He served as a bishopric in Idaho and in Boston, a high stake counselor, early morning seminary teacher, second counselor at the stake level, New York Stake Mission president and high council member, World Fair missionary at the Mormon Pavilion, stake president. He was called to be an assistant to the Council of the 12 in 1972 and as an apostle on April 6th of 1974. He's had the chance to serve under President Kimball, President Hinckley, and President Monson as an apostle. Things that we've learned from his example. The importance of family. Elder Perry's son. When Tom was stake president in Boston, he counseled the men of the priesthood to fill out a calendar each month. And the first item to be placed on that calendar should be a date with their wives each Friday evening. Then family home evening every Monday. Then priesthood meeting, sacrament meeting, home teaching, etc. The wife of Elder Perry, Virginia, is quoted by saying this: Tom was contacted by the president of West Coast Company, who was most desirous of having him join their firm. When he returned home from meeting with them in San Francisco, he said to me, "Jenny, I didn't know why, but all during my flight to San Francisco I had the uneasy feeling that something wasn't right about this position. I was told that board meeting was held each Saturday morning, and sometimes they last all day." Tom told the president that if the board meeting was on Saturday, it would be necessary for him to have another day during the week to devote to his family. Understandably, he was told this would disrupt the entire store organization. The company executive was shocked because Tom was so concerned about what to him was a small matter. Elder Perry's son. My father is a man who believes in involving his family in his many-faceted activities. My mother has been his favorite typist and proofreader for years. In addition, she had read from the scriptures in the church magazines into a tape recorder so that he could use his driving time profitably. My sisters and I have done everything from running a mimeograph machine to correcting his grammar and spelling in his talks. By involving everyone, my father has made his callings and assignments a family affair. And this has molded us into a close-knit family, willing to share and sacrifice for the pleasures derived from working together. When my father was a high counselor in the Sacramento area, I would accompany him on his speaking assignments as his timekeeper, a position I felt was very important. He would give me his watch, and I would sit in the center of the congregation, a few rooms from the front. We used the signs of the three monkeys: see no evil, hear no evil, and speak no evil. If he wasn't standing straight, I would cover my eyes. If he wasn't speaking too loudly, I would cover my ears. And just before his time would up, I would cover my mouth. Even when teaching about church organizations and function, he clearly shows that the purpose of the church is to bring the strength of the gospel of Jesus Christ into the lives of individuals and into families. He's served with enthusiasm. Roberta Jensen sat on an airplane trying to feed her new baby and quiet her 3 other children, all under the age of 4. She was exhausted and embarrassed and alone. The passenger across the aisle was a tall, cheerful man in a dark suit, who, when she spoke to him, introduced himself as Elder L. Tom Perry. As the plane took off, all 4 children started crying. Roberta's embarrassment turned to panic. Suddenly, Elder Perry put away his briefcase and asked gently, "May I hold the baby?" During the rest of the trip, he cared for the baby, feeding him and rocking him to sleep, while the grateful mother calmed and fed the other children. When dinner was served, she reached for the baby, but Elder Perry, still smiling, said the baby was sleeping peacefully and there was no need to disturb him. "I survived the trip," she says, "and retained a dear memory that will be part of our family forever." He never knew the circumstances that brought us together or the fragile state of my emotions at the time, but he saw someone in need of help, and he set aside his own needs to give that help. That thoughtful act is characteristic of Elder L. Tom Perry. When Elder Perry and Sister Perry visited his children's homes, he looks around for something that needs to be done and busies himself doing it. One day he dropped in unannounced at his daughter Linda Gay's house and installed deadbolt locks on the doors so her little children couldn't wander off without her knowledge. On another occasion, she found him out in the backyard building her a fence. Just 6 weeks after returning from his mission, Elder Perry was drafted into military service. He volunteered for duty in the Marine Corps. He was among the first of the occupation troops to enter Japan after the explosion of the atomic bomb. Although schooled as a tough Marine, his heart went out to the Japanese people when he witnessed the devastation of their country. He decided to do what he could do to help. In Nagasaki, he rounded up a group of servicemen to help rebuild a Protestant chapel. When his unit was later transferred, nearly 200 members of the congregation, along with their minister, lined the railroad tracks to touch hands with them as the train went by, a memorable expression of mutual love and appreciation. There's a few more lessons here from his example that, if you want to pause and read through, that would be great. And here are our resources.